So listen, guys, I have watched this video countless times, and I can tell you that almost every time I watch it, I come out of it wishing I was this kid here in a cardboard box. I'd like to take all my technology and chuck it into the dang ocean. I mean, it's terrifying. It really is. And I'll be honest, I am here today with the intention of scaring you. And I say that because generally speaking, as humans, we won't take action unless there's enough emotion behind of it. And when I say scare you, I don't mean bringing up a bunch of nonsense that isn't true. I'm going to talk to you about what's really going on out there in the world and how devastating this can be to your business if you don't take the appropriate action and do it immediately. One of the sayings I love to share with people is you cannot get unhacked. And what I mean by that is you can prepare, you can prevent, but once it happens, most businesses aren't coming back from it. Or if they do, they're coming back in a very crippled state. So that is not what we want for any of us, not for myself, not for my clients, not for anybody that has a business because of how hard it is to get the business off the ground in the first place. I mean, it's brutal running a business. And so the last thing we want to do is watch that thing vaporize because some Yahoo off in another country robbed us blind. So again, I'm going to intentionally paint a bleak picture here, right? But what I do not want you to do is walk away from this presentation feeling a sense of hopelessness, because it's not hopeless as long as we're properly prepared. In fact, it just takes some basic security measures put in place, following best practices, and knowing which practices, which best practices fit your organization. But as long as you've got a roadmap and you've got somebody coaching you through the process, it isn't hopeless, because the reality is that while we're reading about it, we're seeing it on the news night and day of different organizations getting hacked, getting breached, losing data, being financially devastated. The sad reality is that 97% of those headlines we're reading about could have been prevented. And again, with basic security measures in place. We've got to know what they are. We have to be educated. We have to be trained. We have to maybe even get a little coaching involved. But if we do that, we can keep our own businesses safe. We can stay off the news, and we can just do what it is that we're here to do as business owners and executives. Okay, so what we're going to do today is I am going to give you a roadmap. I'm going to give you tools. I'm going to give you basically everything you need to protect your business. And not only am I going to give you the resources, but I'm also going to provide free coaching to implement those resources. I'll walk you through the process. Now, listen, we're not a charity. Yes, along the way, we may try to sell you some additional services. That's where we make our money. But what I'm telling you is two things. Number one, you don't have to buy anything that I'm selling you to get value out of the stuff I'm giving you for free. And number two, if you choose not to buy from us, you better be buying it somewhere. You've got to take action. You've got to be ahead of the cyber thugs that are out there, because they're coming for you night and day. They are trying to knock your doors down, steal your data, drain your bank accounts, and destroy everything that you've worked to accomplish with your business. So getting started, the official title today of our presentation is 3 Growing Cybersecurity Threats and How to Protect Your Business from them, from the cybercrime that's so rampant. We're going to break it down into some 4 simple steps. And then, like I said, we're going to give you a free toolkit to give you the security training. And I mean, we'll go into that, but we're going to give you the resources you need to protect yourself. Now, quick note, I'm not going to read through the text on every single slide that I'm going to show today, because I'm trying to get through this as fast as I can. I know your time's valuable, so is mine. But if you have questions, if I go through something too quickly and you'd like to ask me, you'll have my contact information at the end of this thing. Just respond to me, email me, call, whatever. I'm happy to share that information with you. So today's big promise is that I'm going to show you how to get the target off of your back. As business owners, generally speaking, we are low-hanging fruit. Cyber criminals are out there and they're coming for us. So I'll get you out of this category, the low-hanging fruit, because they love us. And again, like I've already said, the sad reality is that everything we read in the news, 97% of those were preventable. the cyber crime, the breaches, the hacks. We don't have to do this, guys. We don't have to be victim to cybercrime. So, who am I? My name is Justin Shelley. I'm the CEO of Master Computing here in the Dallas Metro. I started with this picture just as a quick background. This was one of the first times I was ever up on stage. I'm in front of about 300 of my peers. Everybody you see in the audience there is the owner or an executive of another IT company, IT consultant here, somewhere in the United States. That presentation terrified me. I can't tell you why I was so dang nervous, but I was. I was so nervous that I don't even remember the first part of it. It was a 12-minute presentation. 6 of those minutes are gone from memory. And so when I came back to the office and I was explaining what happened here to my admin, just kind of out of the blue, I said, I will never let that happen to me again. And so I decided that I was going to stretch myself and I was going to put myself out there in front of people and I was going to give presentations. I was going to talk. It started off just as a way for me to overcome a fear, but it led to me doing countless seminars, webinars. I'm now doing podcasts, all kinds of stuff. And so I'm really glad I did that. But anyways, just a little bit of background of what got me started doing what I'm doing as far as these presentations go. Now, on top of that, I mentioned the audience that you just saw. I coach several of those people in the audience on a one-on-one basis. Well, I mean, it's like, I guess 10-on-1 because we'll do weekly meetings. And in these meetings, we go over operations, sales, marketing, general business strategy, and of course, cybersecurity. And what I can tell you is that as I'm interfacing with the owners of these other IT companies, this is the stuff that keeps us up at night, guys. We aren't kidding when we're trying to sell you cybersecurity protection. We're doing it because not only is your butt on the line, but so is ours. If you get hit, who are you coming after? Who are you pointing the finger at? That's right. You're going to come after your IT company, right? You don't think this keeps us up at night. You're kidding yourselves. When we're selling you cybersecurity protection, we're doing it because it's necessary. Okay, so moving on, I don't consider myself to be the smartest person in a room. And because of that, I do my best to interface with people that are much smarter than me. I'm a huge fan of Shark Tank, and I consider myself very fortunate to have been able to meet with several of these guys. I've met them face-to-face, one-on-one. I've listened to their presentations. I've learned from them. And, I'm only talking about Shark Tank. We've got Mike Rowe up there in the middle. That guy is just, I love him. He's hilarious. He's brilliant. He's a great guy. So anyways, I spend a lot of time trying to better myself so that I can then take better care of my clients. Now, my clients, Master Computing, we're an IT consultant firm here in the Dallas area, Dallas Metro. I've been in this industry for 20 plus years. We're highly specialized in cybersecurity. We also focus on making sure our clients have the right technology, the right tools to do their job efficiently, and then we really have to work towards training them because it doesn't do any good to spend money on technology only to have your people sit there and stare at it and not know how to make the best use of it. So that is what we do in a nutshell. Now, I told you why I was up on stage, or at least why I went on this speaking circuit to overcome a fear. That was a pivotal moment in my life. I'm going to tell you why I now focus so heavily on cybersecurity. There was another pivotal moment in my life when we had a client get hacked. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail later, but what I can tell you is we weren't prepared, mostly because the whole thing was kind of new. Ransomware, it was coming onto the scene. We knew about it. We were protecting against it the best we knew how at the time, but it wasn't enough. And they got hit, and it was devastating to them as an organization. And honestly, it was devastating to my team because it took so much time to put them back together and properly protect them. It was a disaster. So what I decided then and there is that this was never again going to happen under my watch. And so I shifted my focus from repairing computers to protecting my clients from cybercrime. All right, this number, 79,841. What is that? That is the average cost of a cyber attack on a small business. And you can go and quickly read the stuff in yellow, the bullets. There's way more to it than just a ransom cost. But what's more notable about this number is that it's wrong. I put this slideshow together, I might have been a year ago initially. That number was accurate then. It's not accurate today. What's accurate today is that that number went from $79,000 on average to over $200,000 on average. And as you can see in this headline, putting many businesses out of work. What you may not be able to see towards the bottom, which I'm going to highlight on the next slide, is that 43% of these cyber attacks are aimed at small businesses. 14% of those businesses, when interviewed, felt prepared to defend themselves. Guys, 14% of business owners are preparing themselves against cybercrime. This is nonsense. It's crazy. We've got to do better than that. And then the worst statistic here is that 60% of businesses that get hit go out of business within 6 months of an attack. We cannot have that. And guys, I'm not making those numbers up. They come from this CNBC article. I read them all the time. It's not just this article. It's going on everywhere. So I'm going to go walk through a very quick overview of crime as a business, because guess what? It is a business. Early on, you know, if somebody was going to try to make some money in the industry of robbery, theft, whatever, they'd wait in the dark alley, wait for some poor fool to walk by. They'd pull a knife on them, maybe a gun, and they'd say, hey, stick them up, give me your wallet. And best case scenario, they're coming out with a few bucks, right? Maybe whatever the guy had cash in his wallet. So that's not a very effective way of doing business and making money. It is high risk. The guy could fight back. The cops could be around the corner, whatever. And so as this evolved, now the criminals figure out, you know, and technology comes onto the scene, and we're backing up, right? Because we're talking about trains, when trains first came onto the scene. But now criminals had a target or a captive audience. They've got several hundred people. Usually these people are well-to-do. They've got money. Law enforcement is nowhere to be found because they're in the middle of nowhere. And so this is a much more efficient way of robbing people blind. And they do. Well, now to scale it even one step farther, technology is introduced again. And instead of hitting a few hundred people on a train, now the criminals are hitting millions of people at a time. We've got this case of JP Morgan, and I know this one's a bit dated, but just as an example, 80 million people were hacked. Now, I'm not saying 80 million people lost money directly, but this was a devastating attack, and it cost people money, lots of money. The hackers walked away with a huge payday on that one. Okay, so from there we go to Equifax, 147 million people hacked. That's just insane. We're going higher and higher with this. They're scaling their business of crime more and more efficiently. And then finally, the gold medal goes to Ashley Madison. 400 million people's data was stolen, exposed. And now, guys, we're talking about blackmail. You know, we're going to expose your sexual preferences if you don't pay us X number of dollars. Like, this problem is only getting worse. So what's motivating the thugs, the criminals out there? Well, of course, it's money. That's their number one motivation. Sometimes it's espionage. Sometimes it's just trying to humiliate. But generally speaking, they're motivated by money. And if you skip down to the last bullet on this, even an amateur can expect to make $80,000 a month stealing and selling your data. You are the product. All right. So, why do they target small businesses? I've already mentioned that small businesses are low-hanging fruit. Why? Because two primary reasons. One is, yeah, maybe we don't have the budget as a small business that some of the larger organizations do. But as I'm going to show you later in this presentation, you don't need a ton of money. So more importantly, the reason small businesses are low-hanging fruit is because they aren't paying attention to this thing. All right? We've got our heads in the sand, we're pretending it's not a problem, or we go with my favorite one, which is it's never going to happen to me. Nothing bad ever happens to me. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you it does. I watched it happen to a client. I've seen it happen to other people. This stuff is happening. It's hitting people all the time. We have to change this. So the three biggest threats, this was the title of the presentation, so let's get into that. What are the three biggest threats? If I had a live audience here, I mean, I guess we could throw it into the chat or whatever, but what is the biggest threat, guys? And if you want to punch it into the chat, please do. But what I'm telling you is that the biggest threat to our organizations actually isn't directly the criminals. Our biggest threat is us, our employees, me and you. This is where the problem really takes hold. Second threat we're going to talk about is that there is a dramatic increase of malware, and in particular ransomware, which is what that client was hit with that I told you about. That was years ago when it wasn't really a big deal, or at least it wasn't on our radar. Today, this thing is increasing exponentially, and we're going to talk about that. And then finally, the third threat we're going to talk about is bank fraud. Guys, bank fraud is huge and it's draining accounts, and we've got to, here again, we've got to do better than we're currently doing. So let's break these down point by point. Number one, the biggest threat is our employees. And I'm going to say that it's not always intentional or malicious. Most frequently, it's just good people doing the best they can, but making mistakes. They delete some files, they accidentally click a phishing email link, stuff like that. So we'll talk about the file sharing applications in a couple of slides here. The other thing though is using personal devices for work. I mean, guys, this is a huge problem, and it can. We'll get there. We'll talk about that one. So, but this is good people making mistakes, right? Sometimes though it's malicious. Sometimes we get disgruntled employees who, on their way out the door, they're they're deleting backup files, they're wiping servers, they're embedding viruses. This isn't common, but it definitely happens. Those are employees that that we're interfacing with day and night. But here, another thing to consider is that it can be our vendors. A lot of time we get requests all the time for our client will want their vendor to have access to the server, to their network. They want a VPN, they want to tunnel through the firewall. And I mean, guys, this is terrifying to me, because as we do this, as we continue to poke holes in our security and let people in who we trust, you got to be careful who you trust, because there's more than one case. And this slide, it mentions, I'm not going to get into it, but it mentions a vendor who actually took a company down by exposing them. So because they didn't get the bid, they didn't get the job that they were hoping for. So be careful who you give access to your network. Now, I mentioned, I just kind of glassed over it, but shadow IT, this is where good people trying to do their job don't have maybe the resources they think they should or that they want to have. And instead of clearing it with IT, what they do is they just go start installing software on their computers, like Dropbox, for example. They need to work on a QuickBooks file at home, so they throw it onto Dropbox. They get home, they open it up, and they go to work, right? Well, what happens when Dropbox gets hit? Because they did. 7 million Dropbox passwords were hacked, were exposed, were for sale on the dark web. So we've got to be careful what our people are using. We have to know what they're doing, and we have to make it clear to them that all of this, everything that you do with a company computer, has got to be run through your IT department, your IT outsource company, or whoever's handling that for you. So moving on, unsecured mobile devices. This is a huge one. And I mean, we know that if we lose a laptop, we lose a phone, that some of the data could be lost. We got to replace the hardware itself. But an interesting statistic here is that 80% of the recovery cost of a lost laptop isn't about the hardware. You know, you can replace a laptop for $1,000, $1,200, whatever. But when that data gets stolen, that gets really expensive. And we'll talk about that, what's involved in recovering from a threat or a breach. But man, it's a nightmare. It's a disaster. So, okay, again, this is people being our number one security threat. Number two that I mentioned is malware, and in particular ransomware. 350,000 new malware threats are being released every single day. And this is an exponential increase. I'll be honest, when I built this slide, that was the number. It's dated. It's going to be a lot more than that. But the point here isn't the number. The point is that it's happening. New malware is being released into the wild at such an alarming rate, at such a rapid rate, that we as security experts have a heck of a time staying on top of it. I mean, so to think that you can throw an antivirus that you downloaded from the internet, I won't name any names, but I'm just telling you, if you can download it and buy it online, that's consumer stuff. That is not going to protect you. That's like thinking you can stop an army tank with a squirt gun. It's not even realistic. We're not even playing in the same ballpark. So Antivirus on your computer is good. You've got to have it, but it's not all that. You've got to have so much more than that. With ransomware on the rise, listen, one thing that we get asked all the time, if I pay the ransom, am I really going to get my data back? Well, yeah, actually 96% of the time, as you can see in that second red box, it works. You get your data back. But here's what you've got to think about. If you pay them, even if they give you your data back, what you've done is you've told them, hey, I am a paying customer. And so now if you thought you had a target on your back before, you've really got a target now. So paying the ransom is not a great option. We definitely want to prevent. We don't want to have to get ourselves into that situation at all. Malware is not just for desktops, laptops, it's on our smartphones. And yes, guys, if you use an Apple or a Mac, you're still vulnerable. You're still going to get hit. It happens. I know that, I hear that a lot. Well, my dad, I use a Mac. It's not a problem. The other one, it's in the cloud. It's not a problem. Listen, we have to pay attention to security on every device that we use, every platform that we use. So, over 60% of online fraud is actually accomplished through mobile platforms. 80% carried out through mobile apps. Be careful. That's all I'm saying there. Yeah, they're scumbags. So looking at this slide, one of the more recent ransomware attacks is they embed child pornography on your phone, and then they lock it down so you can't remove it, and they tell you pay up or I'm going to alert the authorities. I mean, it's dirty what they're doing. So we have to be ahead of this game. Bank fraud, I said we were going to come back to that. One note here is that the FDIC isn't there to protect us. It's there to protect the banks. Okay, so if you get in some way somebody steals money out of your account and you go to the bank and say, hey, that wasn't me, somebody else logged in and stole that money, most likely the bank cannot help you. And it's not that they won't try or that they don't care, they simply can't. It's just the way it works. All right, so again, this is incumbent upon us to be on the lookout and to be taking the appropriate security measures. I don't know if you're familiar with Vern Harnish. He's kind of a mentor of mine. I've read his books. I'm coached by his team. My business coach is one of his people. Great guy. Long story short, he was traveling overseas and ended up through an email attack being hacked. $400,000 was stolen from his bank account, right? This stuff's happening all the time. It's happening to the best of us. Now, like I mentioned, if you think you can go to the bank and get your money back, chances are you cannot. Here's an example where a guy, first of all, he was hit with a $440,000. They stole it, right? Stole $440,000 from his bank account, and he went after the bank and with lawyers, thought he was going to sue him to get his money back. So not only did he not get his money back, but then he also got stuck with the legal fees. And as you can see at the bottom of this thing, it says that he was out of business. End of story, right? Game over. So we can't get there. We just coming back from this stuff is virtually impossible. We've got to protect against it. You guys, I want to keep this short, so I'm gonna skip the first. Well, I talked about the client. I can tell you briefly that client that got hit that I mentioned. It took us 3 weeks to completely rebuild their network. They were in some way, shape, or form down, crippled for 3 weeks. It was devastating to them as an organization. It was devastating to us because for 3 weeks, our entire technical team, or most of us, were tied up trying to get them back up online. I mean, this was an absolute nightmare. A controller, this is just a lady I know that worked for a local organization, phishing scam. She was told that she had to wire $50,000. The email came from the boss, from the CEO, or at least it looked like it did. She wired the money. Turns out, no, it wasn't the CEO who sent her that email. There's $50,000 lost. Light it on fire. It's gone. Finally, the city of Fort Worth. This story is about a year old as as we sit here right now. And briefly, what I want to say is that when I'm talking about best practices, When I'm saying that these are preventable if we put basic security measures in place, on that scale, by their own admission, the city of Fort Worth was 90% out of compliance. Now, I have to put some fine print on that. The city of Fort Worth didn't ever officially admit any of that, at least not to my knowledge. But their employee, who they later fired for kind of whistleblowing, is the one that said that they were out of compliance by 90%. He was one of the IT staff for the city of Fort Worth. So, and not only did they fired him, instead of saying, hey, thanks for pointing out that we've got some security flaws, they just can him. And then so he goes and turns around and sues them for wrongful termination. I mean, it's been a while since I've read this story, but what I can tell you is that it's a mess. And my biggest takeaway is that instead of rewarding people for bringing security breaches or security flaws to our attention, as a culture, we're silencing them because we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want people to know that we have this the security gap. So if you get hit, and really if you're not going to take my advice and put these security measures in place, it's not if, it's definitely when. You absolutely will get hit. Here's what's going to happen. Nobody's coming to your defense. There's not going to be a lot of sympathy for you. Not only that, but you're very likely going to get investigated about what you did or didn't do to prevent it from happening in the first place. You might have to notify your clients. That's going to be a fun day. Hey guys, sorry that I lost your data. Don't worry. Well, actually you should worry. Anyway, you might make the news if you're especially lucky. And then finally, you're going to be on the hook for the costs of not only restoring the data that was lost, possibly rebuilding your network, but you very likely will have to pay to whatever damages were done to your clients if it was their data that was stolen. So it's a mess. This is a nightmare. So in case I haven't already painted a bleak enough picture, I want to point out these are 3 real-world cases, and admittedly this is dated. I put this slide together. Again, it's been several months, maybe close to a year now. But these are true stories. So a $1 million ransom was demanded of Grays Harbor Community Hospital in Washington State. 2 months later, they were still impacted by that attack. All right. In 2 months, they had not fully recovered. Can you afford to have your business down for 2 months? No. All right. I'm just going to answer that for you. Second point here, ransomware attack on Wood Ranch Medical in California destroyed all patient records and their data backups, guys. These criminals are getting smart. They sit on your network quietly and they watch and they look at how you're conducting business, and then they go after and they start cutting strings and they start putting in holes in your security, and they just wait until the right moment and then they strike. This particular medical organization, unfortunately, had announced they would cease operations December 17th of last year. So I don't have a follow-up on that. I assume that it happened, that they did cease operations. But when that article was published, that was their intentions. And then finally, Brookside ENT, they refused to pay the ransom, $6,500. And that kind of pissed off the hackers. And so in retaliation, they said, fine, don't pay us. We're going to wipe your entire system. Not only did they hold the data ransom and not give it back, they went in and they wiped out the entire network. So rather than attempt to rebuild, it was too much of a loss. They closed shop, all records, all medical history, it's just gone. Imagine being a patient, you call up and say, hey, I'm trying to schedule my follow-up procedure, and they say, sorry, your records are gone. We can't even tell you if we did the initial procedure or not. You're out of luck. Go find a new doctor. All right. Again, we can do better, guys. So it's ugly. It's if we're not paying attention, if we're not doing what we need to do, then it is a dark, it is a bleak, it is a hopeless situation. But that can't be our takeaway today. The takeaway today that I'm going to say over and over again is that 97% of these attacks could have been prevented with basic security measures. All right, we got to do something. We have to take it seriously, but I'm not saying you've got to break the bank on this thing. All right, you probably need some professional help. You probably need to hire a specialist. I don't recommend that you do it in-house. And again, I don't care. Hire me, hire somebody else. Just get it done. All right. So the toolkit that I've teased, what is it? Let's go into that now. First of all, every organization is different. And so the last thing we're going to do is walk in and say, hey, here's exactly what you need to lock down your organization. That's malpractice. I won't do that. So the first step is to schedule a free 10-minute discovery call. In that call, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to understand your organization, the size, the complexity, your goals, your dreams, and then we're going to decide, A, if this toolkit is the right answer, or, does it need to be tweaked, customized, or whatever. And then, so from there, we're gonna give you a dark web report, depending again on whether your organization fits the profile. These reports work for some, they don't for others. I'm not gonna get into that now. But this discovery call, this is free, no strings attached. We'll give you the roadmap, we'll show you what you need to do, and then we'll decide how or if we need to move forward in relationship. Optionally, did I go 2 slides? Nope. Okay. So based on that phone call, one of the services that we might offer to you for sale is a cybersecurity risk assessment. And we can't do this one for free. I used to, but it's too time consuming and we couldn't do a good job when we were doing it for free. I will discount it. You can skip ahead, see it in the red there. We'll pull $500 off the top of this thing for going through our webinar today. But this is a thorough evaluation of your organization's security gaps. We rip open the hood, we look under the cover. I mean, we're digging through your laundry. I mean, we're gonna find out where you are vulnerable from a security standpoint. And then we're going to provide you with a very customized action plan based on that assessment. Here again, whether you buy our services beyond that or don't, you will know what needs to be done. Maybe you already have an IT company who's telling you they've got your back, they've got you covered, you don't need to worry. Well, let's find out if that's true. And if it's true at this point, you can stop. There again, no strings attached here. But know that you are taken care of. Know that you're protected. That's the main point of this cybersecurity risk assessment. One of the things that you will get if you choose to go this option is a very customized cybersecurity documentation binder. It'll have your name, your company name on the spine, and it will have dozens of sample policies and procedures inside. I say sample, we're actually upping our game. And by the time you order this thing, we'll be able to customize them for your organization so that each document, we can go through and pick the ones that you want. We can embed, your company name, your language, everything is in a document. I mean, this thing is ready to roll. This is another visual just on kind of what you get with this kit. I laid some of those documents out to kind of show you, and I couldn't fit them all on that table. There's dozens and dozens of them. So that's from the paid assessment if you decide to go that route. But back to the free toolkit that we've been telling you that you get. It's the 10-minute assessment, and then this is absolutely free. The online security awareness training, unlimited users. Put this out there for everybody in your organization. Make sure they go through the training. And I'll tell you that every time we try to give this away for free, the #1 problem is people just don't do it. Whether it's you as an administrator or a boss, a CEO, you don't have the time, or your employees won't do it or whatever else. And so not only do we give you the resources, but we walk you through it. All right, over the course of 2 months, you'll get some automated emails. You have direct access to me, to my team. We will help you get this put in place. So the email is just a quick overview there. It's every week you'll get kind of a new module and it tells you what you need to do with the instructions. There's some follow-ups, some reminder emails. Once you've taken that action, you just hit a button on the email that says take me to the next step and you move forward, and we just kind of take you through that process. But like I said, for that 2 months, feel free to email me at any time if you've got specific questions. Okay, so guys, that is basically it. This is the toolkit. You get the one-on-one consult, the 10-minute consult, you get the online training, you get the free coaching, and then optionally you get that on-site, deep dive security assessment. So the next step that you need to take right now, not tomorrow, not in 15 minutes, right now, schedule that 10-minute call. No strings attached. You don't have to pay a dime. Get me on the phone and let's talk about what you need to do to up your security level to get you out of the low-hanging fruit category, to get you into the 97% prevention category, because like I've said, you get hit, a lot of times it's game over. So guys, right now, go to master-computing.com/discovery, book your consult with me, and let's get this thing started, because like I said in the beginning, you cannot get unhacked. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.